In the year 1212, deep inside a Bohemian monastery, a monk named Herman the Recluse was handed a horrific death sentence. For breaking his sacred vows, the church ordered him to be walled up alive inside the monastery's stone foundations. Facing the prospect of a slow, agonizing death in total darkness, Herman pleaded for a final chance at redemption. He offered the senior monks a desperate bargain. If they spared his life, he would write a single book containing all of human knowledge, and he would complete it in exactly one night. They locked him in the cellar, fully expecting him to fail. But when the heavy wooden doors were opened the next morning, Herman was alive. Resting in front of him was an artifact that defied reality. He presented the monks with a leather-bound leviathan. It stood over 3 feet tall, weighed 75 kilograms, and was constructed from the harvested skins of hundreds of donkeys. Collecting the raw material, preparing the vellum, and drafting the ink for a book of this magnitude typically requires decades of labor. Completing the task in 12 hours suggested to the monks that the work was achieved through something other than human effort. When historians and forensic analysts examine ancient manuscripts, they rely on a biomechanical principle called the rule of fatigue. When a person writes continuously, their muscles tire. Their handwriting naturally degrades, letters begin to slur, and the spacing becomes erratic. This chart shows how normal human script degrades over time. The sharp decline represents physical exhaustion setting in, the inevitable result of a scribe's hand losing precision over hours of work. But look at the data for the Codex Gigas. Across all 644 pages, the calligraphy maintains a xenovarying mathematical consistency. From the first letter of Genesis to the final page, there is no change in spacing, ink flow, or letter structure. To explain this physical impossibility, Herman offered a confession. He had prayed for salvation to the devil. As proof of the pact, page 580 features a massive portrait of Satan, which legend claims was drawn using the entity's own blood. The combination of biometric perfection and the towering portrait of the occult left the monks with a chilling conclusion. This was not a book written by a man. After Herman's death, the Bohemian monasteries tried to hide the manuscript away. But as the book changed hands, it became associated with misfortune. Monasteries housing the artifact reported sudden financial ruin and mysterious deaths among the clergy, eventually forcing them to pawn the book to cover their debts. By 1594, King Rudolph II of the Roman Empire, a known occult enthusiast, borrowed the text from a library. He believed the book held secrets that would allow him to master the physical and spiritual worlds. Instead, Rudolph's mental state collapsed. He withdrew from his duties, ignoring his empire to spend weeks staring at the devil's portrait on page 580. He claimed the book spoke to him, keeping him awake for days at a time, until he eventually lost the ability to recognize his own family. This instability invited disaster. Rudolph's family deposed him in 1611, and he died in poverty shortly after. His fractured empire was then looted during a 30-year war, and Swedish forces claimed the manuscript as a trophy of their victory. By the time the Swedish army claimed it, the Codex Gigas had already earned its reputation as a destabilizing force, leaving a trail of psychological decay and political collapse behind its owners. In 1649, the manuscript was installed as a war prize inside the Swedish Royal Library in Stockholm, a setting designed for absolute security and isolation. During a late-night patrol, an elderly guard named Lars heard a rhythmic sound echoing through the draft-free hall. It was the sound of heavy vellum pages slowly turning by themselves. Lars approached the table and found himself staring at the devil's portrait. He reportedly fell into a trance-like state, unable to move or even hear the sound of his own breathing as he was drawn toward the illustration. Without warning, the 75-kilogram book violently snapped shut on its own, crushing the guard against the heavy wooden bindings. For the librarians in Stockholm, the Codex Gigas ceased to be a mere archive of knowledge and became something that required constant, wary supervision. On May 7, 1697, a sudden fire broke out inside the Swedish royal castle. The library was quickly engulfed, and thousands of rare volumes were incinerated in the heat. Librarians noted a strange anomaly. While surrounding books were reduced to ash, the Codex Gigas appeared to repel the flames. Even its leather cover survived the intense heat that melted nearby metal. To save it, the book was hurled from a high window. It survived the fall, but when it was later recovered, historians realized 12 specific pages had been removed from the center of the manuscript. The thick leather bindings indicate these pages were violently torn from the spine. Scholars suspect these missing leaves contained the actual demonic summoning rituals, removed by the clergy to prevent future readers from using the book's power. Today, the Codex Gigas is kept in an airtight vault in the National Library of Sweden. Yet its remaining text has been fully digitized and uploaded to the internet, where anyone can examine the artifact's impossible calligraphy. It remains a physically impossible creation that has outlived kings and the fires intended to destroy it. With its missing rituals still unaccounted for, it dares us to consider what we would be willing to trade for the power hidden in those lost pages.